Hello once again, and many thanks for joining us right here on Rwanda Television. Glad you chose to be with us and follow each and every of our programs. The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting continues, and this year's Commonwealth Business Forum lays a platform for member states to come together and formulate ways to address pressing issues in the business and economic sector, as they are actually pathways and backbone to economies. And this year's Business Forum in particular is being held under the theme of a global reset, during which the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the Commonwealth's role in rebuilding and reintegrating the global economy will base on. Actually, one of the things that were much talked about is creating spaces and actually opportunities for young people to tap in the business sector and actually be the cheerleaders of this particular sector, with a focus on how the youth and young people in general, be it on the African continent or even beyond, can actually be the champions of food systems and actually food security in general. And this is what we are particularly going to be talking about, and actually seeing what are the challenges that are still on the way and how they can particularly be addressed to actually achieve food security on the African continent, but at the same time engaging young people to champion this, as actually we had to change the saying that they are the future, or they are the leaders of tomorrow, but even today matters for young people. And in this regard, I will be joined by Dr. Agnes Matilda Karibata. She is a Rwandan agriculture scientist and policy maker, currently the president of the Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We will also be joined by Sekina Usengimana. She is an entrepreneur, particularly in agriculture. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And also later on in a few, we'll be joined by Celeste Rwabukumba. He is the CEO of the Rwanda Stock Exchange, to actually get the perspective of financing when it comes to young people in the agriculture business and business in general. I'll start with you, Dr. Agnes. When it comes to food security and engaging young people, and actually very recently, one of the things that have affected food security and created crisis all over the world is the COVID-19 pandemic. And give us a sense of where we are when it comes to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and actually the Russia-Ukraine war in terms of food crisis globally.
Sure, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, and thank you again for having me. I mean, the Ukraine crisis is happening on top of other crises. You would know, and you remember that for some time now we've had climate. Probably the biggest defining factor in the agricultural sector is climate change, especially if you live in Rwanda or if in sub-Saharan Africa in general. But of course, COVID-19 came and completely disorganized our economies, eroded a lot of what we had already built, and threatened jobs, especially for young people, because young people were working in many places, sometimes not extremely secured places, and many of those jobs definitely fell off the cliff at the earliest possible.
All right.
But then there was another set of jobs that would fall culprit when hotels don't work. When the whole value chain that involves the food industry, all the way from production to hotels, don't work, definitely people lose jobs. And many of these that we are losing jobs were young people that had already put their bet in the food system. So COVID-19, probably its worst impact is the fact that our economies are much weaker. Our countries are in positions where employing and creating job opportunities for people is extremely difficult. But it's a recovery process, and we'll start from here. Of course, it's made worse by the Ukraine crisis.
All right.
But for me, if you ask me, I mean, there's no point in our time that people have talked about food and food security more than today. The question for me becomes, if this is the time we get to do things differently, then let's double down, because it's on everybody's mind on everybody's lips. So I want to make sure that this is an opportunity that we don't waste.
All right, thank you very much. Sakina, she just said this is the time when everybody has to do things differently. In your own perspective, young entrepreneurs, not just in agriculture, as you are an entrepreneur in this field of agriculture, but young entrepreneurs in general, is it an easy way to go for young entrepreneurs currently?
I may say definitely not. It's not the easy way, but it's the only way we need to do. Because food security is an issue for everybody. And as a youth, we believe that we have to take part of our future and also our current situation. So in summary, I can say, is difficult? Yes. But is needed? Yes.
What makes it difficult for young people?
So what's make it difficult for young people? It's so many factors. I may say, as Dr. Agnes said, the COVID-19 came, young people lose job, we don't have so much saving. What do we do? How can we start a business when you don't have savings? How can you go to the bank when you don't have financials, when you don't have collaterals? Even though there's different program that is out there, but it's a process. So it's sometimes difficult for young people to jump in, but I think they should do that and also look for the support, because that's the only way we need to go.
Dr. Agnes, Africa has a lot of untapped potential to produce food sustainability, not just for the African continent, but globally as well, as actually has Africa has the most fertile soil globally. Can we do better, and what can we actually do to realize this actual thing of achieving food sustainability for ourselves, for our people, but also globally, because capacity is there, I believe?
So it's true that we have the world's remaining largest land for food production, so that's not a question. But for me, the biggest thing about where Africa is at today, we also have the youngest minds in the world. In form of young people. About 70% of Africa is youth, anywhere below 35 all the way. So that group of people that has the ability to not fear anything, to be creative, to be aggressive, is what we need to really tap into aggressively from an agricultural sector perspective and really move the sector forward. My biggest hope, actually, is in...
Do you so agree with everyone that young people, when it comes to the agriculture sector, they've been left out and there's a lack of inclusion?
So left out is probably not the word. Left out, maybe it's been very difficult to mobilize them. It's been very difficult to pick their interest. And mostly because our agriculture sector is defined by primary production, the very basic of the sector, which is looking at how you produce food from the land. But the agriculture sector is much more than producing food. It's a food system. It goes all the way from production to the hotel industry, where food is being consumed. So we've narrowly focused on that, and in terms of advertising the value of the sector, we haven't really brought out those elements. But more importantly, even the production part has potential. Excuse me. Even the production part has huge potential in the form of ensuring that farmers have access to services. You know, one of the challenges that has undermined our agricultural sector to date is trying to model it against all forms of agricultural sector that probably wouldn't work for us. We work with smallholder farmers. They work small lands. We need to focus on giving them services and ensuring that those services create value for them. We cannot model agriculture sector on big ag, big time agriculture where you're mechanizing from here to there. No, we need a farmer to be able to hire a tractor when he needs a tractor. We need a farmer to be able to hire a thresher when he needs a thresher. We need a farmer to have a small loan when he needs a small loan. And we need those things to work together. We need farmers to have platforms where they can go and discuss what they are learning and the opportunities they see in the sector. Young farmers like her need an opportunity to be able to understand where the world is at and acquire knowledge. And if I'm not wrong, actually, you're one of the winners in the Value for Her, which is a platform about 3,000 women, agripreneurs in the agriculture sector, that we put together, recognizing fully well that young women like her might feel isolated, might feel like they don't know what's happening in the sector, might feel lost in a sector that is so complicated. So by creating this type of platform, we ensure that they have a linkage to knowledge, so they can access platforms that offer knowledge. They have a linkage to support, they have so that they can see where different resources are at, and they have linkage to training.
Actually, I want us to expand more on this issue, but let's first take a short break. And actually, when we come back, one of the things I would like us to expound even more is actually what she just mentioned about young people not having access to finance and means, collaterals and loans for them to actually tap into the business sector, particularly into agriculture. We'll be right back. Indeed, welcome to Rwanda, the country of homegrown solutions. We are still talking about business and entrepreneurship with a focus on opportunities that are given to young people. And as I had said it earlier, we are glad to be with Dr. Celeste Rwabukumba, the CEO of the Rwanda Stock Exchange. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Young people are saying that when it comes to financing, it is a difficult job, and will help us to really understand this and how the issue can actually be solved. But before I come to you, Sakina, don't you think at times there are opportunities that actually young people do not tap into, and we end up with general excuses, including the lack of access to finance and exclusion and many other reasons that we give ourselves not to actually do what we're supposed to do and tap into the agriculture sector as we're supposed to? What do you think about this?
Yes, I think that will be a possibility. But again, why should I go into agriculture? Sometimes we have this image of agriculture, people thinking, you know, like bad image, you are very poor, you know, no one wishes to be a farmer, you know, no one, but as doctor, you know, I keep quoting you. So, but what I'm saying is that people think agriculture is just cultivating. But if now today you tell me I don't need to use a hoe, I need to use tractor, oh, that's interesting, it is exciting, I want to join. But how much will I buy this tractor? Do I have this capacity? So I think also changing the narrative of agriculture will also help youth to even think about, even go to look for those opportunities. But if we keep thinking that a farmer is someone who is poor, if your children at home say, I want to be a farmer, you say, please stop, I don't want to hear this word anymore. Because you want them to do other professionals, because you think maybe that will help them to make a living. But if we make agriculture exciting and cool for young people, we will join, and then we will look for the finances. But I think excuse may be there, but it's not much as the procedure of accessing this finance.
Dr. Celeste, young people are saying when they try to access finance, they would actually love to tap into agriculture and actually other sectors of business, but access to finance and inclusion to finance has been a problem for decades. And I think if actually nothing is done, as we all might agree, this will continue even for the next decades and decades. Where is the problem in the first place? Does it lie on the financial institutions that are supposed to help young people, or does the issue lie on young people themselves? Help us understand this issue.
Well, it's a catch-22, if I may say. Access to finance for most businesses. Let's start from business in general. A lot of people in our part of the world, they claim access to finance is a problem. Of course, indeed, there's some truth to that. But when you talk to someone like me, I tell you, money is there. There is no problem of capital. The issue is bankability most of the time. Okay. You know, people have ideas, but ideas are not businesses. You understand? You can have a very good idea, which is not really a business idea. You can have a good idea, and you don't know how to run that idea as a business. So it's a problem for everyone, but when it gets to the youth, I was looking at the few numbers earlier that were being spoken about at the Commonwealth, and some of the knowledge I have in general. You know, the youth, there are so many of them, okay? They are more than 60% of our total population in Commonwealth. And you are talking about that particular section, 1 out of 3, they are between 15 and 29. years of age. That's about 640 million people out of 1.8 of that youth. I'm talking about the youth. The whole Commonwealth is 2.5 billion people. So now we're talking about most of the countries in the Commonwealth. They are from poor countries, including Rwanda, of course, the lower income countries. But today, you know, the same way we've seen technology emerging, I think, you know, agriculture is going to be part of that. So maybe we'll get to that after I say what I was going to say. The youth, particularly, they suffer most because our traditional financial services can't solve their problems easily.
Why?
We say there is money. Traditional means we have a traditional banking sector, which lends you when you have a collateral. You have capital markets, which needs you to grow before you can raise money from the capital markets. And you have other, you know, NGOs who are trying to do one or two things, but they are not enough. You understand? So I think if you say there is a problem of accessing capital, yes, and finance, definitely. If you try to blame it on the financial service providers, yes, there is a part of that. They are part of the problem, maybe, of not being innovative enough, probably. But there's also that bigger problem, actually, of bankability and viability of business. You know, whether you are in agriculture or you are in any other business, it must be viable. It's not just a good idea. You could be a good IT guy, you're a good programmer, you can code anything you want in this world, but you are not a business person. So there's much more to that. And that thing, unfortunately, it gets you to finance beyond collateral.
All right.
So if a banker or anyone who has their money want to give their money, they must make sure, can you manage that money? Is that idea a viable idea that can be profitable? Because no one gives money for free or for charity.
All right.
So I think to answer your question, definitely there is a huge problem of access to finance. But there's also solutions that can be found, but thinking, you know, outside of the box, not the current system.
Before we come to solutions, Dr. Agnes, you've been in this sector for quite a while. Celeste says there is money, but young people say we're not being given money to finance our business ideas, particularly even in agriculture. It becomes even harder. What do you make of this? As someone who have been in this sector for a while, how do you analyze this issue? Because the banking sector says we have money to give young people, but young people says we are not being given money. Where's the issue?
Now, you know, a while ago, probably 10 years ago, here we had this very conversation here, asking ourselves, why isn't the agricultural sector being funded by commercial institutions? Why does it have to be a public sector public sector funding that goes into the sector? We had a conversation with Governor Kanimba then in the Bank of Rwanda. And what we decided to do, he called all these heads of banks, and one of the biggest challenges we saw was the fact that banks actually had very limited capacity to understand the place and role of the agricultural sector in the economy, not just to them, but in the economy, and how not growing this sector is actually stifling possibilities for further ability to make money. But take an example of a bank like Equity Bank, which is one of the fastest growing banks in East Africa. One of its largest portfolio is agricultural sector. KCB just moved in here and is one of the biggest things they are doing through former Bank Populaire, is taking advantage of the market share that Bank Populaire had and really driving and taking advantage of that so that they can lend to the sector. I think for me, the ability of banks to understand the place and role of the sector and the opportunities the sector offers is huge. We trained, as in the Ministry of Agriculture, we offered actually a number of banks here. We took their staff, gave them degree scholarships so that they can go to train and come back and lend to the agricultural sector. A little bit of movement here and there, but the bottom line is their needs, it can't be something that young people will define. It has to be that banks are looking for solutions as well. It has to be that financial institutions are looking to lend as well. It has to be that they see this population that has so much capability in their heads and hands as a potential that they can tap into. They have to put products on the table that can work for young people like her, that are willing to go. The risk is not being taken by the bank. Let's be very clear here. The risk is being taken by her. So I think that this risk that the banks talk about...
Is it an issue of misunderstanding or actually less understanding when it comes to banks adopting these projects of young people to finance them?
I actually think that there's enough space, there's enough room for banks to make money without having to worry a lot about what's happening in the agricultural sector, which means we don't have enough money in the system. Because if we had enough money in the system, you would want to know what to do with that excess liquidity. But I don't see any banks crying of excess liquidity. They are busy in infrastructure. They are busy in if you want to build a house, they are there. The money is being put in all these other sectors that are assumed to be less risky. But the agricultural sector is increasingly also becoming less risky because there are institutions, like my institution, that focus on ensuring that the youth that are in agriculture have the knowledge they need, they're being trained. We've put in place a whole institution to train young people, upcoming young people in agriculture. We've put in place a mechanism, we've put in place a deal room. We actually have a deal room at the AGRF that focuses on creating a matchmaking platform that allows young people that have business ideas with the market. But to be honest with you, most of these are evaluated by international standards. It's agreed that these deals are worth doing, but the uptake is extremely low from the financial institutions. So I think there's something there that we need to understand. What I would love to do is to create a platform that gives everybody, that creates the right level of transparency around businesses and of young people and what they are able to do, but also creates the different challenges. Where do financial institutions see the biggest challenges, so that if we have philanthropic money like I do, we invest in taking that challenge away, but make sure that the youth get opportunities for investment. Because there's such money, like he's saying, in the system that is available. But is it available in ways it can unlock commercial money? It can't be available as an end in itself because it goes away. It has to be available to unlock commercial money. And for me, those type of partnerships have to be nurtured, because avoiding the agriculture sector, avoiding the youth is not an option.
Absolutely. I'll come back to Celeste commenting about what you just said. But he's saying there is money, but sometimes young people do not have actually, if I would say, enough information, enough capacity, business-wise, commercially, to tap into those opportunities and actually make their money worth giving. What do you have to say about this on behalf of everyone, every young people that wants to tap into business but still have this issue of access to finance?
I think young people we are capable, and you have been trained to be able to do agribusiness, and we receive different trainings, so which means that we are ready. But the challenge comes to, for example, someone have a passion fruit or chili farm. A bank come there, they say, what is this? Maybe the bank I'll go to visit the farm is the first time ever seeing the chili. So how do you think this person is going to assess the risk? They say, this is terrible. I cannot give the money to this because it's the first time. But I always think about, even ask the banks, we have different conversation, how many banks that have agriculture sector for people who specifically understand agriculture. Because most of the people, they go to the market, they buy food, but they don't know where the food comes from. So why don't they have agronomists who can really evaluate my farm and give the real value of it? You cannot tell them, I will harvest, I will get the production of 20 tons. They could not understand that, because then they don't understand how things work. So that time I will not get the money. So I will need to have a land, something that have a title, but you know, the farm I have cannot have a title to be able to access the finance. So all of that is a challenge we are facing. You tell people, I said chili, I say, how many people, when I go to the market, I don't find the chili. Where do you sell it from? You know, for us, Afri-Food, we export outside, but explaining all this process also becoming a challenge. So which means that for the financial sector, they need to educate themselves with like understanding what is agriculture, and have also people who are technical understanding there, so that when they come to evaluators, they can at least start from there. If I have a farm that in maybe 2 months I can have like 5 million, why don't you give me 500 to buy pesticide so that I can keep my farm going? But there's no trust.
All right, Celeste, you just had these two saying actually there is enough willingness for the youth, there is capacity, they really do have ideas that can be transformed into profitable business, but when they go to banks, there is little understanding of the agriculture sector and how it can be turned into a profitable business. But actually, when you go to each and every bank, they will tell you they plan to finance the agriculture sector. Why is it that these plans are not being put to use, and we can't actually see the results? As she just said, we can still see the banks finding agriculture ideas of young people as strange rather than actually assessing them. What is still the issue with the financial sector in general?
Like I said earlier, you know, our financial sector is almost 90% dominated by the banking sector, the traditional banking sector. In Rwanda alone, we only have one development bank, that is BRD. So now, I started saying, if we are to fund this, we need to think, you know, outside of the box. Because the traditional banking sector is very, very straightforward. It's about the risk. So they think about their collateral before anything, most of them. So if they see an area which they perceive to be risky, traditionally, we have to also understand them where they are coming from. Traditionally, agriculture was subsistence agriculture. I think he knows. You know, so it was subsistence agriculture. It was not commercial. So now everywhere I know that there has been commercial agriculture, people make money. You know, actually, they make a lot of money. A lot of them, the people I see in South Africa, you have big farms, countries like Zimbabwe, many places actually on the continent, you know, they farm and they make a lot of money, and they are really millionaires in dollars. So now you would wonder, why not here? You understand? So us, it has been subsistence. Now that things are becoming more commercial, people and the young people, mainly, they are being educated, and they are being educated scientifically, not just throwing dots on the farm to wish for rain to come and then you harvest. No, they are actually thinking and learning and doing, you know, so it's possible. But now I don't think our financial sector has caught up with that necessarily. You know,
how do we transition? How do we transition from this actually classic way of banking to actually a modern way that can really understand this perspective of financing agriculture?
Well, I think you would have to have maybe a few successful stories to talk of. You know, some good projects that make it, and the banks will start to fight for them. Otherwise, the traditional banking system is not addressing this issue, probably. And actually, I would rather think about other ways. You know, we are talking about traditional commercial banking, but now we also have investment banking. You understand? So, which have different kind of funding. We have the donor community that can help to, or bilateral FDIs that help de-risk some of this. We can think about insurance, all those things that can de-risk for the commercial banks they can do. But there are other ways of funding the sector and the youth, because they're innovative and it's the future. You know, food we will always eat. You understand? So that means that's something, there's a commodity which you need on a daily basis. Over how many billions of people live this world, everyone has to eat every day. So that already in itself is big, and we have the land. We can even get concessions across the continent, and that would be put to work. But the banks, we need policymakers maybe to chip in to help, for them to take some level of risk also on that, because their main problem is the perceived risk in agriculture. That is the main problem. It's not the problem of liquidity. Banks are liquid enough for projects, but not agriculture. later on the youth, which they perceive to be not experienced enough or not having enough wisdom or knowledge. But nowadays the youth are educated, so they definitely can be supported.
All right, Dr. Agnes, now that the issue is there, do we just sit and cry and, you know, what do we need to do right now?
No, I mean, there are quite a number of things that are already happening. It's not all doom and gloom. There are, like he was saying, there are a number of blended financial instruments that exist where government public resources can be put to use. Even now, I know that the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Ministry of Finance, has just brought in resources to be able to unlock SME capacity in the agriculture sector, especially following what just happened with COVID-19. That money is not going to be given, you know, just go do stuff as free money, but it's going to be blended with private sector money, so that more private resources can be unlocked to be able to take that money further. So probably for every dollar they have, they're probably going to unlock maybe $5 to $10 of private resources and really start creating an ecosystem that understands the sector, but also has the ability to lend to the sector. I mean, the biggest thing we probably need to do now is to expand the sector. The agricultural sector has huge opportunities for job creation. It has huge opportunities for food. We shouldn't be having a food crisis. We have all the potential that we have as a continent. We should be more connected and more trading. Now we do have the African Free Continental Trade Area, where trading in food must be our number one priority. We are buying $50 billion worth of food from other continents, food that we can produce, right? Like even from wheat. Lots of countries in Africa can produce wheat. Can they move it around and bring it to Rwanda and take it to other countries? Probably not as efficiently as we get it from other countries. Lots of countries can produce rice. Every time we send $1 out, in terms of imports, it's jobs we're exporting. Every time we buy stuff we can produce, we're exporting jobs. So for me, that's the biggest opportunity. We need to expand the sector by increasing productivity in the sector. I work for an institution that really specializes in moving forward the seed industry. And we just worked with the government of Rwanda here to get the seed sector to work. One of the things I learned from that I think would really work for young people here and on the continent is to create a platform, like I said earlier, that allows everybody that is interested in investing in this sector to really come into that platform. Are you looking for money? Are you looking to sell money? Are you looking to grow chilies like you're doing? Create that platform that really gives people an opportunity to invest, but then allows the risk takers, the people that have no problem taking risk, or the people that are trying to unlock money, also invest in only areas they must invest in. So that way you allow the people that are afraid of risk to actually understand that there are opportunities that they can match. So you're trying to match opportunities of investing resources with opportunities of investing in the sector, with opportunities of creating jobs. So if we did that, then everybody has visibility and transparency of where resources are coming from and where they are going and how to make money in the sector. Then we will be able to create better opportunities for young people. Right. So, I mean, a very simple example is mechanization is a huge thing, but mechanization is not about tractors. It's about post-service loss management. It's about cold rooms and cooling stuff. It's about threshing. It's about so many things. But we only talk about mechanization from a perspective of a tractor. We don't look at all these other things that have opportunities for employing youth. You know, so and value addition is a huge opportunity. We don't talk about that, right? Value addition in terms of what she's doing, you can't just get vegetables from the garden and export them to Europe. You add value by sorting, by cleaning, by grading, and all those things. Those things create immense jobs in industries where the horticultural sector is working. Right. So we need to expand the sector, and we need to create transparency in how the sector works so that people can understand the opportunities that are available, but also minimize the risk, the perceived risk of the sector.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you, Sakina. I loved one of the things during the panel of this business forum that President Paul Kagame said, that these young people we are talking about, that have been talking about even for the past years, it is high time we actually choose to do things with them rather than doing things for them. But if policymakers, if institutions, if international organizations are pledging to work with young people to actually put in practice what all we're talking about, all the policies, all the plans that are there, particularly in the agriculture sector, on you as young people, on we as young people, are we ready?
Yes, we are ready. We are ready, like every time, for example, now I'm here in RBA, and when I go out, I'll receive so many messages. People tell me, I want to go to agriculture. How can I do this? How can I do that? Which means that if I can receive like 15 calls a day, people asking me, how can I do this? We use social media. People see what we do. They find it interesting. They say, oh, we want to visit your farm. So it means that they're interested. They're curious. So we are ready and very much ready. And we really wish that the financial sector can be ready as we are.
Yeah, I do agree with her. I do believe their young people are ready and very excited about the sector. I mean, when we did, last year we had the Food Systems Summit. So one of the things that we thought about was, why do we have all these like myself running the Food Systems Summit?
Right.
Why don't we create an opportunity for young people to be part of what we are doing? And in fact, what we did is in every area where we had specialists and big knowledge people, we actually made sure that a vice president in that area, what we called action tracks, a vice president was a youth. And we created a youth platform. I mean, many of us went home after the Food Systems Summit.
All right.
The young people did not go home. They went to COP26 to demand action around COP26. I mean, they took over the summit. They owned it. They started talking about it as, this is our future. You don't mess with our future. So for me, it was one of the most, it was eye-opening that you create the opportunity, they go all the way, you know. So I really think I've seen that in the agriculture sector as well. When I look at the number of people that follow me, they follow me because they think they're going to learn something. And for us, where I work at Agra, every opportunity we have to create a learning platform for young people, whether it's Value for Her, which we've created for women, which has now 3,000 women subscribers, whether it is Generation Africa, which is Africa's young people in agriculture, which is a platform that really tries to understand the challenges from country to country and uses that platform to really advocate for young people and to show where the opportunities are in different places, in different countries, and how we can learn from each other, but also creates a prize that allows all sorts of ideas to come to the table. And then CALA, the institution I was talking about, which is Center for Africa's Leaders in Agriculture, which we have created specifically recognizing that there's a knowledge gap when people want to go in the agriculture sector, so that people can actually come and learn from this. And lastly, the D room in the AGRF. The D room was created so that ideas that are fundable and get funding. I do believe, and we do see hundreds of ideas that are fundable that are coming from young people. And we'd like to make sure that those ideas don't get left on the table.
All right.
Yeah, so.
We need to make use of those ideas. And she says young people are actually ready and so curious to tap in. But how do we create spaces and opportunities for them to really tap into, but practically, not just in policies and plans?
Practically, I think for like those she was talking about, very important. Other players in the industry, I think even the banking sector is thinking about it. So the readiness we are talking about is to do it. You guys are ready to work, and if the ideas are good, I've heard of transparency, and if the ideas are good and bankable, bankability, I don't mean collateral. I'm talking about the proper business idea. proper farming project. It's not just trying. You see, sometimes you're trying, you don't try with other people's money.
All right.
Because that people's money belong to other people. So that's the problem with the banking sector.
All right.
So they are giving you money which is not theirs. You see, so then that becomes a problem. Then you have a regulator on the top. You know, when the central bank comes, they ask you, what have you done as a banker? So that's what happened to bankers. So sometimes they are cagey because of some issues like that. But since we are talking about the readiness, there used to be information asymmetry. There used to be a lot of knowledge gap in what agriculture can do. And nowadays, the youth is the more land-bound than the older people, by the way. Today, people Google. People go read, and every time, everything you do, you have to research. There used to be no such a thing. You used to see a neighbor, you know, farming, you go and farm something next to them, and maybe it's not the same. You know, it's not going to yield the same thing. So nowadays, there is a support from different institutions of government, NGOs, and different fora that helps in getting proper knowledge. So now if the youth is ready, I think you know, no one can be left behind because the youth is the future, and agriculture is the future.
I'm so curious as we are heading actually to the end of our conversation. With the evolvement of technology and digital transformation and it being adapted into agriculture, do you think it would change anything in the way banks and financial institutions perceive financing agriculture projects?
I'm not so sure, because you said the fundamentals of them not participating have nothing to do with technology. It has to do a lot with, you know, the bankability, like I said earlier. However, where technology can be applied properly, that contributes to the business being more viable. If you are talking about mechanization, yes, you are talking about the whole value chain. It's not about tractors. It's about irrigation. It's about how you use that technology to even, what do you call it, use the seeds. You know, how you water your plants. You know, you are doing greenhouse. That's technology you're talking about. So that kind of technology is important. You see, so anything that adds value, definitely it would de-risk, actually, you know, the project, so that the bankers can look at it further and more. But we need innovative ideas altogether. Yeah.
But maybe where the digitization probably facilitates bank the most is it's the easiest way and the most affordable way of collecting information, of getting data, right? So across the board, as a bank, you have the ability to get access to millions of data points, and you can use that information to be able to decide where things are going, to be able to see clear trends. So if you're a banker right now and you're trying to use data, you would understand that MTN sales go down every time there's a drought, mostly because MTN is supported significantly by 65% of Rwandans who are farmers, right? Of course, everybody buys airtime.
All right.
But, excuse me, but that 65% that buys airtime when they harvest counts for something. So that information is visible when you actually have the ability to use digitization to collect it. Now, number two, you have much easier and a much easier way of reaching out to people and lending money and being able to track how they are using it. So you can actually send small loans out to test them, see how they are working. I mean, credit cards started like that. They give you $200 if you pay back, they give you $500. So I'm not saying that we test with people's money, but we have an opportunity to actually do things differently today, because digitization does give us new ways of reaching people and does give us different forms of information that we didn't have before.
All right, as we head to the conclusion, Sakina, speak on behalf of young people. What do you think and point where would be the way forward towards actually addressing this issue for good?
So what I can say to young people is that from today they start to educate themselves. They join Very For Her. This is one of the platforms which personally helped me. It's not just teaching you how to cultivate, it's just teaching you even how to do business, which the financial bank, they need. They need you to have good books. They need you to have like everything in the order. So that, as I'm saying that we are ready, we really show them that we are ready. We go with our proposal, we show to them, and they should not be scared, even though there's just saying, oh, financial system is very difficult. This should not stop them to join the agriculture sector, because this is the future, and I encourage everyone to educate themselves, through this different platform. And also I want to thank AGRA for helping us also through this process, because it's not even helping us ourselves only, helping also our farmers. As she mentioned, that we are now currently training around 30 women from different sectors in the sector of agriculture, but in different districts in Rwanda and Gatsibo. These women also is part of our farmers. We are educating them. So this knowledge we are getting from this platform like Vary for Her, even this farmer doesn't have a smartphone. I have it, I have received the training, so I transfer this training even to our farmers. So this is what we need to do, and we keep pushing until can be able to access the fund.
All right, Celestine, on the side of financial institutions and actually financiers in general, banks and everyone, in 30 seconds, what's the way forward?
Way forward is to research more, to listen more, I think, and try to open up to innovation and thinking outside of the box, because there is a future in this sector and the youth in particular.
Dr. Agnes, the way forward.
I mean, no one can move this sector alone. We need to collaborate. We need to come together. There's so many institutions that are moving youth forward. We need to come together and try to understand how we can complement each other's efforts, because Africa's young people need to be in the agricultural sector, and the agricultural sector needs them.
All right.
They are innovative, they are courageous, they can do it.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Agnes, for being with us on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celeste Rwabukumba. And thank you very much, Sakina Usengimana, for being with us on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone who took their time to actually take part of this discussion. I'll just end with what different participants of the business forum said. A lot has been said, and actually policies are on the papers, but enough words has been said. Now let's put it to action and actually include the youth as we develop the agriculture sector. Up until next time, my name stays Sam Kalisa. Goodbye.